Hi, welcome to another customer self-service video. In today's video, we're going to talk about a feature within SAP Ariba sourcing called email bidding. Typically, when a supplier has to respond to an RFP, he has to either log into the UI, enter his codes in the system, or download an Excel sheets to be able to fill out his codes and then upload it back into the UI. SAP Ariba Sourcing offers an alternate means of a supplier responding to an event, and this is called RFP bidding by email. In this case, the supplier does not need to have to log into the UI in order to respond to an RFP. Why is it important? A lot of times we notice that suppliers are often hesitant to log in to the system in order to place their bid for small events. This resistance sometimes leads to suppliers not participating effectively in the system. In order to make sure that the suppliers participate, we have come up with this feature which lets suppliers to respond to an RFP by an email. How does it work? In order to get this working, you will need to turn it on at a template level. What you need to do once you turn it on at a template level is to click on the create button, click on the sourcing projects. In a way, how you create a new project at this point of time, go ahead and create a project. Let's now create an RFP. I'm trying to source, for which I will use the email bid system. Let's choose RFP. Remember, this works only when the event is an RFP. The email bidding feature will not work when the event which you're trying to run is an auction. Okay. Let me quickly choose needful. Once I choose the needful, you will notice that there is an email bid functionality turned on and in a specific template. This is the suggested approach, and this is what will make it more effective. Once you choose the specific template, click on create. Let me quickly make some selections here. Under the bidding rules, you will see a rule which says allow participants to submit bids by email. We have two options for this, yes or a no. When you choose a yes, it allows a supplier to access and respond to an RFP via email. Quite simply, what you then need to do is to add some suppliers to your event to test this out. In this case, let me quickly add a supplier. Once I do this, I will then go and add my event content. Now, this is what is the key here. The RFP bidding by email functionality will only work when you have a single line item, which means in more complicated events, when you have more than one line or more than one lot, the email bidding by email system might not be entirely applicable. At this point, it is only reserved for events or RFP events where you have a single line. In order to demonstrate this to you, let me quickly add a line item and say I'm trying to source a die named ABC, and it has a grade quality of AA. I will then say I want 50 pieces of these, and I quickly click done. Yes. Let's say historically I paid around 200 rupees for this, and then I click done. What we then do is we quickly pass over to the summary tab, there was another rule which I turned on here. Let me turn this to off just for the sake of simplicity. Go back to the summary page and then click publish. What will then happen is that an email would be initiated from the system, which would be sent out to the supplier for supplier's response. In a minute, I will show you how the supplier sees the email and how he responds to it. See you in a minute. Alright, I have now received an email as a supplier to respond to an RFP where I can email my quote. This is the email which you see in front of you. In front of you is what the supplier sees on their end. Please note that the supplier will see two options. One is to email the quote and the other one is to decline the event. If the supplier would like to see additional details, he could click on the See event, which would then take him back to the system for him to get the details of the event before placing his quote. If the supplier chooses to email the quote, he would have to click the email quote button. In this case, you will note that the response is automatically drafted and the price for the line item which we have asked for is included here. Please note, for the sake of simplicity, I have kept it down to the minimum. If the supplier wishes to, if you as a buyer wish to include more details in the content section, give more specifics about the product which is being sourced, feel free to do so. The supplier would see uh, an option called price with an asterisk mark indicating that he has to place a bid for a specific item. He would see colon followed by a blank space. The supplier would then enter his quote right after the colon. A couple of things to keep in mind. This is very format specific. The suppliers cannot alter with the subject or the body of the email. Once the supplier places his bid for the specific item, the supplier can just hit send and it would automatically go back into the system. There are two points you'll have to keep in mind before choosing whether you'd like to conduct an email RFP. The first is whether you have multiple line items, and the second is whether you have event content which has multiple drop downs or check boxes and so on. If you do, then your email will not be able to support them completely. As you see, the email format is fairly basic and simple, and hence you will not see those options available. Once the supplier fills his price, he clicks send. And once he clicks send, it marks the end of the supplier response to the event. Now the response would come back to my system and I will be able to see it just like any other response. Let me show you in a minute. Alright, I have just received a response from the supplier which I sent via email, and the response has been documented right in front of you. This marks the completion of the email by RFP feature. I apologize, RFP by email feature. Please note, you can turn this on using your templates and be able to access it in your events. Couple of points which you'll have to keep in mind. One is how many line items you have, and second is how complex your event content is. The intended purpose of the RFP by email is to only tackle your simple events where you do not have too many line items or you do not have complicated event content. We have seen customers use this in order to get a quick check on the price for a single event, for a single item, which changes price on a continual basis from month to month. That's probably a gist of how you can use the RFP by email feature available within SAP Ariba Sourcing. Thank you. In order to get the feature of RFP by email enabled, there are a few steps to be considered. First, you click on Manage, navigate to your templates, pick up the template where you have the RFP configured, open up the template, publish a new version of the template, edit the template to make some changes. Once you come to the rules section, navigate to the bidding rules section, search for this rule called allow participants to submit by email and click a yes. Ensure that it is delegated or it is read-only so that at an event level you will then be able to see this option of allow participants to submit bids by email. Once this is enabled, then you will then be able to create events where suppliers will be able to submit bids by email. Thank you. In order to make it easier, I have compiled a few steps which you will need to follow in order to get the RFP bidding by email functionality in your system. Some key points which you will need to be able to keep in mind include the problem statement itself, when you would like to get the RFP by email functionality alive, and when would you like suppliers to respond to this route. The second is the actual solution itself as to how the entire flow works, which I have described in the video. The third is what benefits it entails. You would probably have many more suppliers participating in your event because they will now be able to email their bids. You would face significantly less supply resistance to participate in events if you already have been experiencing some amount of feedback from them. And a couple of points on how do I get this working, like I just described, and a couple of tips around points to ensure that the system is continually working and the suppliers are able to submit bids by email without any issues. So using this, you will then be able to ensure that vendors have access to this and you will receive bids by email in any way as like how you receive today. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the customer self-service video. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to your customer engagement executive or your best practice center individual or Ariba support. Thank you.